So I actually interviewed a member of the SJB, Rehan Jai Vikrama, quite recently, and he's taken a similar route as yourself, where you were a member of the UNP, you were elected from the UNP, and then now you're the Colombo East organizer for the SJB. So can you tell us a little bit about what led you to make this change, when you made this change, and had you been wanting to make a change for some time? Could you tell us a little bit about how your thinking went and what drove you away from the UNP, which you said you've supported for your family
generations.
So it's a big decision to leave something like that. How could you tell us a little bit about it?
See, Kusum, to be really honest, I don't think I have still left the principles of UMP. Okay. I'm still, I still believe, and I think, most of the SJB believes in the principles that the UMP was built on. And to be really honest, I was someone who actually supported Mr. Ranil Wickramasinghe, I staunchly supported him. But see, the problem with Mr. Ranil Wickramasinghe is Mr. Ranil Wickramasinghe without power is a different person to a person with power. Because, he seems to kind of like lose the plot when, whenever he gets power. And when 2014, 2015, when the Yahapalana government started, we actually started seeing this, that Mr. Wickramasinghe would, mostly get, his own team to surround him, and there's nothing wrong with it. But the thing with this team, these were people who were business people and wheeler-dealer deal makers, and they were not actually people who were, going on the roads and, going to the grassroots and, getting the people's opinion and, getting the ground level reality. And he used to lose, and even today you can see it, he just totally loses it. Because yes, in politics, yes, you have to make some hard decisions, but the thing is, these hard decisions does not matter at all if you cannot win the next election as well. Because we are living in a country that the system and the policies change with each and every government, which is totally wrong, but that is unfortunately the society that we are living in. So yes, you have to make hard decisions, and but you still have to keep the ground level and the grassroots happy, and you have to come to a balance. Otherwise, your whole system falls down. Because we saw this after the Yahapalana government, there was really good policy decisions that were reversed straight away, and people gave the mandate to reverse them.
Yeah.
So
if I can just ask you about, you mentioned the principles of the UNP. I wondered what you thought about, because you also mentioned how you were in the early 2000s, as a Sri Lankan abroad, you feel more patriotic. You're worried about the unitary nature of the country, right? That's the essential fear of all Sri Lankans, correct? Because there's a threat to the unitary status, and we can't ignore that. It's not something we've made up in our heads, right?
Exactly, and it's been there for almost 2,000 years here. So, yeah.
True, fair enough. Okay, so let's take the UNP and Ranil Wickramasinghe, because now Ranil Wickramasinghe's thinking, his policies have come to define the UNP, right? In a way. And it still does in a way. So he has always been on the line of, as you mentioned with the CFA, I think you and I will agree that the CFA was a tactical error, because everyone knew that the LTT had a maximalist sort of objective, right? They were not fighting a war to push us into negotiations. They were fighting a war to win the war.
Yes.
And we sort of thought we can negotiate our way around this with Prabhakaran, which I think even after the first few years of the CFA, we knew was failing. But let's keep the CFA aside. How about the 13th Amendment? How do you feel about the 13th Amendment in the context of the nationalist critique of it? Now, the nationalists will say the 13th Amendment that the UNP and Ranil Wickramasinghe have supported, even Ranil Wickramasinghe has said, let's go beyond the 13th, let's go to 13 plus. But how do you feel about the 13th Amendment if the nationalist critique is, it was basically something introduced to us by the Indians, why should we? Because a lot of the nationalist voters see the 13th Amendment as the first step to separatism, to the first step to federalism and then to separatism. And this to me seems to be why the UNP just doesn't, under Ranil Wickramasinghe at least, hasn't ever won the trust of the large majority of people. Now, we can say that there's a significant majority that are racist or nativist or whatever, but the fact is that they have not attracted any portion of a nationalist base to the UNP. So how do you personally view the 13th Amendment and Ranil Wickramasinghe's stance on it? Just your personal point of view.
See, Kusum, 13th Amendment, I think even I am standing at the populist opinion that I think it is not suited for our country. Right. We don't really need it. We are such a small country. We don't really need to break it up into provinces and do that whole thing. Because we are just basically too small.
So just to interrupt you, you're a former provincial councillor. So you can also then tell me, while you're answering, do you see it as being useful in Sri Lanka's governance structure?
Exactly.
The provincial council?
Yeah, I'll get to that. I think we should, instead of coming up with the 13th Amendment, we should actually start making our whole constitution of the country more free and more susceptible towards the other races. Right. And we actually have all this in our constitution. It's just that sometimes we choose which part of the constitution that we are going to listen to and which we are going to enforce and which we are not going to enforce. But if we can actually enforce the constitution of the country properly, I think it will be a fair and equal system for everyone. Yes, I do believe that maybe we should leave out of this main language being Sinhalese thing, because it has actually brought us back and held us back. It has done no good for us. So we have to come and think about those things, and we should stop thinking about these trivial things, because every Independence Day we have this argument of whether the national anthem should be sung in Sinhalese or Tamil, right? At the end of the day, these are very trivial things, and I think only small-minded people would be thinking like that, and it has held us back and kept us in this place without moving us forward. But your next question, provincial council, I personally think is useless.
Okay.
I think they should do away with it. I was a provincial council member. Absolutely useless tier of government and red tape. Basically, I believe that the whole provincial council system should be abolished, and they should break up the powers and give a little bit to the parliament and the rest to local government. Right. And through local government, we can actually give those areas a certain amount of independence or self determination.
Correct.
And it could be done. And having a provincial council adds, I think, around 680 odd council members that are surviving on people's dime. They get half the benefits of any parliament member, and the whole package comes to around 150 to 200, about 175,000 a month with fuel allowances and everything. And we just don't need it, right? And we can do a better job by not having that. And and the staff that comes with it, not the personal staff of the members, but the whole provincial council organization to run. And see, in Sri Lanka there's a lot of red tape, and our bureaucratic system is made in a way that there are so many ways why not to do a job.
Yes.
And
exactly. Exactly.
There's hardly a way to do a job except you go and give somebody a little bribe, and then everything happens really quickly. But the thing is, by having another tier in this whole system, it actually slows down everything. Let's say that something is passed in parliament, it comes to the provincial council. That whole process will take about a year, and then from the provincial council to get it approved and to get it to the local government level, it will take about another 1.5 to 2 years. And for the local government or the municipal council or whoever to do it, it will take about another year. So the whole process is taking 3 to 4 years without any need. And when they go to do that actual job, sometimes you find out the budget is no longer there, right? So it is an unnecessary tier, and I think
yeah, you're completely right. I think the idea is that the provincial councils are meant to provide, empower as much of Sri Lanka's localities within those localities, right? But what happens is you sort of have another power center built up in each place, which is then, it's sort of directly under the government in many ways. So they sort of do what the government wants, and then you don't really reach that empowerment either. And at the same time, peoples, now for example, you take the north or the east, it's not that they have really changed for the better since having this provincial council system either.
Yeah, it
right?
hasn't helped anyone.
It hasn't really helped. So we should really look at it. But then the point is, how do we ensure that these rights of, let's say, Tamil-speaking Sri Lankans in the north and the east aren't trampled upon further? How do we ensure their continued freedom is, I guess, obviously the challenge. And in that question is where I think the current government, Ranil Wickramasinghe's government, will struggle, because they are, obviously, they have the Pohotu backing them. And the Pohotu has a completely different ideology on this. So it remains to be seen how they're going to bridge the gap.